Hi guys, it's Ruthie with the Popal Backyard Farm. I am just loving this version, the new International Readers version. It's very nice. I picked it up at a second-hand spot somewhere or other, and it was a soft-covered book, and I covered it with this fabric that I obtained from going to a furniture store. You go to a furniture store and then you can ask them if they have old samples they don't want, and they will. Some of them will give you a whole big, huge bag of them, and you can make crafts and stuff. And these work great for book covers. So you just kind of have to call around and ask, and see what if they'll be willing to give you their old fabric. So I got some of this, and usually they just toss them, so they're happy like every season. So don't be shy, call and say, hey, can I have your old sample fabric? And so I'm using some of these to cover these soft covered friendship Bibles, and I'll show you what I did on the side. I wrote Jesus. Now, some of these Bibles, this one was in, looked like it needed some help a little bit, so I just call it, there's like little spots from being old on the side, so I just made it kind of a hippie looking Bible. So that's another thing. You can cover your Bibles with fabric, and I just use Elmer's glue. I need to glue it down a little bit better, but see, it was just a little soft cover. But that's something you can do to your books to get them looking a little bit nicer. But if you're not making friendship Bibles or friendship notebooks, I know I've talked about this a lot, but basically all you do is collect old Bibles, thrift stores, ask your friends, ask your church, or maybe you can clear your shelf of Bibles you're done reading, and then I just design them, make them nice, leave notes in them, and then I write, I put a little card in the beginning, and I tell them, welcome to the Friendship Bible Hobby, and I tell them to read their Bible and pray, add their notes and art, and pass it to friends. And it can be a notebook too. And then I say the turbo start is get 10 Bibles or more. I'm always working on a ton of them at the same time. I just keep collecting them, trying to make them look nice like treasure Bibles, so that by the time I'm done, they look really nice and I can give them away. Or if I don't have that version, I will keep it and read it for study purposes, because it's a nice way to get all your study Bibles too and make them look nicer. So that's what I did with this one. So I'm enjoying it. And so this one here, I didn't have this version, and I heard about it from somebody, but I never saw it, and so I have it now, and then I'm enjoying studying it and reading it, and so it looks kind of cool. And then once I finish it, I'll probably just shelf it for future reference, or give it to my son, because he's a student of the Word too. So that's something you can do too. If you don't have the version, keep one version of each version that you get, and then pass the other ones on. That way you can study and share with the people that you know, and know that Word like the back of your hand. Now today we're going to get into Esther, which is one of my favorite books of the Bible. Like everybody, I think they're all my favorite. So let's start in just going verse by verse, and let's go. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, I hope I'm saying this correctly. This is the Ahasuerus which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 107 provinces. Ahasuerus reigned from India to Ethiopia over 127 provinces. That's what I wrote. So he has a nice big area to reign over. So I'll have you look at the pretty yard while I'm reading here. That in those days, when King Ahasuerus on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, and so he reigned in Shushan, where he sat on his throne in his palace. So that's where his palace was. In the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto the powers of Persia and Media. the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him. So he had a huge feast of all his like officials and nobles and anybody that, had influence. He had like a big, huge feast. And this was in his third year that he had this big party for everybody. Okay, so now let's see here. We're getting into verse 4. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. So what he did was he took all these officials and he showed them through his kingdom and the majesty. They were having like a great time looking, kind of like when you go to a big event. He's showing them like all the things in his kingdom and one thing after another, and they're enjoying looking around and seeing all the things that he has in his kingdom. And it was like really a spectacular event. Okay, and then when these days were expired for the first big king party, in verse 5, and when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. So he took his, like all the people that were in Shushan, like maybe they were just the palace workers, I'm not sure, but everybody that was like in that, like his workers and everybody, he just had like maybe more the everyday people. Maybe they were just the workers, maybe just, anyone that was in like that vicinity. He had it says, great and small, for 7 days. They had a party in the garden area. So they had like a nice big party and for 7 days. Okay, verse 6. Where were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings, and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. So it was like really beautiful. I mean, can you imagine being invited to like a royalty and you were allowed to sit in their furniture and look all around, and I'm sure it was just spectacular. The atmosphere was like wealth and glamour. Okay, verse 7. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. So they got all kinds of fancy dishes, and imagine being handed a gold goblet, and you could drink out of that, and and just beautiful everything. Just, and here you're sitting in this awesome, beautiful royalty place. Okay, so they drank from gold cups and different things, and they had wine in abundance, the fancy wine from the king. Okay, verse 8. And the drinking was according to the law, none did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. So they could drink as much as they wanted, and nobody was told that they had to stop, and they could just enjoy themselves and just be totally free. Verse 9, also Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. Okay, so now the queen had her own party with the women in the house that belonged to the king, and they had their fancy party there. So he permitted her to have a party in his fancy house. Verse 10, and on the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded, I'm going to not say these names perfect, but let's just see what we can do here. Mahoman, Bissa, Harbona, Bagtha, and Abathag, Zethar, and Carcas, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king. Now note all the 7s there, 7 days, and we have 7 chamberlains, which were probably eunuchs, I'm not sure. We may have to do more study on that. So basically, when the king was drunk, and said his heart was merry, he said to his guys, he said, "Hey, you guys, these guys are serving in front of him. Go on over to Queen Vashti's house, because we're going to be getting more into that story." So here we get all these guys. They're heading over to see Queen Vashti. The people were probably excited. Oh, wow, we're going to see the queen, you know. And so these guys were going on over there. Later on, we're going to learn that one of these guys, if not more of these guys, you'll hear more about it in the story if my information is all right. You know, we'll be studying about it more. Try